Some people call him Mr. Hornby. Some people call him Delegate Hornby. Around here, we just call him the boss. That's why he gets some Springsteen on his way.
He's the one who would sign my paycheck here if I wasn't a volunteer.
Yes, and a tall volunteer.
Yes.
Good morning, gentlemen. Nice to be here.
From Alabama, where it's a beautiful 117 degrees today with 148% humidity, right?
It sure does feel like it. In the afternoons, it gets pretty salty down here. I've been busy. We drove down to Alabama. Firstly, went to Charleston on Thursday last week for the PEI meeting with the governor. Then drove back to Martinsburg on Thursday evening, and then drove down to Alabama on Friday for the SLC, Southern Legislative Conference down here in Alabama with most of the southern states.
Are there any other Eastern Panhandle delegates or senators down there, Mike?
There are no Eastern Panhandle delegates, but there are about 20 of us, including some of our staff. The lawyers get continued education, credits for the sessions they take and the roundtables they take. So there's about 4 staffers and about 16 delegates, and I think 2 senators. Is
this one of those things where you just decide you can and will go, or do you get assigned to go?
Well, it depends. Obviously, you can ask to go if there's something that you want to go to. For me, there was a really good roundtable on school aid formula. As you know, I kind of involved myself in that because of education. I have a pretty good understanding of our current formula. The roundtable that we had was predominantly about Mississippi and Alabama. They've changed from a very similar school aid formula that we had, and they passed legislation this past year adjusting it. So I wanted to find out what they were doing and how they were adjusting it. And based on the results that I saw, it's very, very similar to where I think we're going to go with the school aid formula, or the direction we feel we should go with the school aid formula. So I found it very interesting on that. I also presented to all the Irish trade commissioners from all the other states. I had a presentation yesterday on our results from our trade mission that we went to. So it's been very, very productive for me.
What changes to the school aid formula are you thinking about making?
So I think what we don't do is we don't account for special needs funding, and we don't account for socioeconomic status in our funding. And I think it is important to look at that as well as our transportation. In our state, we have such diverse counties that there are some counties that truly aren't being funded for the transportation they actually do. Whether, we've got counties that are busing people an hour and something, to school an hour, something back, and they're not getting funded for that. So there are some changes that we should be looking at. Instead of going, basing our funding on staffing, it should really be based on students and what those needs are, and every county is different. So while I don't think we can simplify it to really simple, we can definitely simplify it and make some adjustments. In the end, I believe we need to spend more on education, and I think in the end, it'll be the return on investment will be absolutely amazing. So if we can cap or put a solid number on education and then work that downwards, I think the results will be extremely. I mean, you look at the Third Grade Success Act and the results that we're seeing in first and second grade over the last 2 years. It's been amazing, and if we can invest in education more like that, the results will truly be amazing.
Well, the literacy scores are up. We talked to Amy Grady about that, the Senate Education Chair. I think she said 5% improvements there. And the Third Grade Success Act has had a lot to do with that. Mike, you mentioned we need to spend more on schools and education. So right now, the state has been doing for several years, and I think has just a few more to go, has been doing some catch-up contributions on pension spending. And obviously that goes into the for pensions for teachers and such. Does that get counted when people say West Virginia already spends too much on education? Do those monies get counted toward what we spend on education?
Well, obviously they do, but
so that's kind of misleading then, isn't it?
Well, I think we really do have a fully funded pension fund, so I don't think that is the issue at all. Obviously, West Virginia is actually pretty darn good. We're middle of the road for the states, about 21st in spending per student. However, when it comes to students with IEP, special needs, or our socioeconomic status, we are behind the curve there. And if we can at least change that perspective and spend more in those areas, provide more aids, provide more help. We are a poorer state. We have the drug epidemic really did hurt us over the last few years. So there are things that we need to spend more money on. I'm not saying money will fix the problem, but the more aids and the more we can address that problem, I think it is really important.
Mike, I got a question. If we are 21st in spending per student out of 50, but we are darn near at the bottom as far as teacher pay goes, where's the money going?
Well, that was kind of the gist of my question. I think there's a $400 million catch-up contribution to get the teachers' pension plans up to the amount it needed to be, Mike. And I was told that was also counted toward spending toward education. Clearly, that's not going into the classroom to help a kid learn.
That is true. And I think to answer Jonathan's question, on our formula right now, we still have a lot of other costs when it's not just professional educators. So we have service personnel, we have transportation, we have school building authority. A lot of the funding is block granted, but at the same time, there is a lot of funding that is, for instance, when we do an excess levy, we can only use that money for a certain thing. I think we should open up some of those spending capabilities so that they can spend in the classroom and can spend on teacher salaries. So if we can open up and free the districts to do what they see fit, I think it'll go a long way. If we get, and they have some of those capabilities now, but there's a lot of earmarks on that funding, and I think if we free up the local school boards and give them the teeth to actually govern like they're supposed to do, then I think it'll go a long way.
So if we could do an excess levy here in Berkeley County, which is a wealthy county compared to most of the rest in the state, that could be used to fund much higher teacher salaries, that
they
would
can do that already, Jonathan.
But only to a certain amount, though, right?
Only to a certain amount.
But why are we restricted when we have the money? It doesn't make sense.
At the same time, you've got to realize that a school board or a school board authority doesn't want to give everybody a raise based on the excess levy because they don't know if the excess levy is going to go through the next time it goes through. So
right.
I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, we're trying to give freedom to the local school boards. And then you've got the other side of the picture where our southern states or some of our southern states haven't been very, what's the word I'm looking for without being mean? They haven't been very good with their money and and there has been quite a bit of fraud.
You mean southern counties? I think you said southern states. Did you mean to say southern counties?
Yeah.
I agree with you on all of that. I'm a strong proponent that we need to have more, that the local school boards need to have more control. Look at what the president's trying to do with the education department to give the states more control. If our state is a conservative state and we believe the same way that the president does on education, and there are a lot of people that are excited that there's not going to be as much control by the education department, we should do the same thing in our state by allowing the counties to have more autonomy over how the money is spent and what they're doing to educate the kids.
Well, I think more autonomy is great, but also more accountability is
Yes.
important when you look at that. We are looking into how the feds are going to do that, because obviously if they just send us $5 billion to our state board of education and the legislature has no control or oversight or buy-in to that, that is pretty worrying to me.
I agree with you. There needs to be oversight, and on everything there needs to be transparency and oversight. And I believe they need to answer to the legislature more.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask about, like Rob mentioned, the amount of $400 million, but whatever the amount is that you've been putting into that pension funding to fill that up, will that money automatically stay within education? As you mentioned, that pension is kind of full now, or do you have to reallocate that and it may end up somewhere else?
I mean, I think it's all part of basically, when you look at the education budget and how you get there, the school aid formula, it kind of all does that. But it really comes down to, we spend about $2 billion on education as a state. We spend $1 million on feeding our kids, and we get $1 billion in grants from the federal government to feed our kids, which is why most of West Virginia has free lunch and free breakfast. So it all goes into that big pot, and it's kind of automatic based on the school aid formula. So it's not really being appointed. When you look at the big picture, it's about, I think it was $1.87 billion was our last budget, and it keeps going down because of the declining enrollment in West Virginia. My ideas that I'm pitching is let's just call it $2 billion. Let's not take it down because we're declining in enrollment. Let's call it $2 billion. Let's figure out how we can actually take that extra money, that $100 and something million, and let's reinvest that into special education, special needs, socioeconomic status. Let's look at the districts that are really struggling, and maybe give them more. And then let's also look at those growth districts and say, hey, they are doing, when you look at Berkeley County, we're kind of like the Cadillac of school districts. I mean, we have the largest budget. We have really good people employed who know what they're doing. But there are some counties that, the school board are going around and they're the janitors because they can't afford a lot. So, we have some really small school boards in small districts that need help, and we have to recognize that.
Has there been talk at the state legislative level about maybe consolidating some of the county school boards, school districts, where they don't have a lot of kids? I mean, I don't know what the lowest is, but I read somewhere there's one county that has less than 1,000 kids.
There are about 8 counties that are less than 1,400. I think it's up to 13 now. We did have a piece of legislation last year that did consolidate 3 counties in the South that all have been taken over by the state school board anyway. That did not go very well. There is an appetite for it, but it's kind of like not in my backyard. People don't like the idea that the state's taking over or consolidating, but it's something we have to address. We have to address it, and how we address it is really important because we want those counties to still have their elected officials overseeing those superintendents. It is something that we'll be looking at, but it is a very, very sticky subject, if you will.
You mentioned
Not as sticky as locality pay for teachers, though.
Or not. Yeah.
And that's, for us.
Matt, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, you mentioned before this that you had stopped in Charleston. You had a meeting with Governor Morrissey regarding PEIA. We had the governor on yesterday, mentioned that there will be a special session for this. It's just a matter of selecting the dates. Do you have a clue when that might be, or when does it align with your next interim session?
So I did listen to pieces of Governor Marcy's interview with you yesterday. I was pretty impressed with his interview with you. I did like the fact that he said, you can't call a special session until you have consensus. I don't think it will be July. I really just don't think we have enough time to get all the information out. I know the governor has some ideas. And I'm from the status that we don't have an insurance problem with PEI. PEI is a fantastic benefit that our employees have. Obviously, when you look at the people on PEI, they don't like the fact that their premiums have gone up. But unfortunately, the rising cost of healthcare has gone up, and you have to pass that on. I think when it comes to PEI, we have a funding problem because of the rising cost of healthcare. So as a state, we have to figure out how we're going to fund it. Whether that's, I think it was $57 million this year, $75 million next year. Over the next 4 years, it's an extra $238 million to our baseline budget. Those are the concerns at the state level, but it is a Cadillac plan, and we don't want to change the benefits that the employees have currently. And what it looks like moving forward is something that I think is being discussed. But I really did like the fact that Governor Marcy is listening. We've had 2 different meetings with legislators and senators, and all his staff, and it's pretty much a roundtable discussion. What that final idea that Mr. Marcy or the governor wants, we still haven't seen. I think it is important if we're going to do something that all the stakeholders are involved, and obviously, as caucus chair, I want to make sure all my 91 members know what the plan is and we agree with it. Otherwise, I don't think a special session will be very successful.
Yeah, you can't go down there. You don't have the time like a 60-day session. This is something at $35,000, $40,000 a day expense to the state. You'd better have people who know what they're about to vote on and are in agreement on most of it, so you can get that thing moving.
Yeah, I think, and the House is different. We're 91. Well, we're 100, but as I speak for the Republicans, we're 91 alpha personalities who all have a say, and if they're not involved in the process, it can go south really fast. So I think our members are working with the governor and trying to come up with a solution. And we will see. I know the governor's really trying to get something done before September because that's when the PEIA board meets to decide the next thing. It's just going to be whether we can get everybody on the same page.
Jonathan has had several suggestions over the months and ways the state could save money on PEIA. Do you seek the advice of people like Jonathan in the business as to how you can do it?
And I ask those questions. I mean, we're the only. I asked, how come we're the only state that bases on salaries versus risk? And the reality is we're a large employer, so we have to offer insurance. So we can't just say, hey, we're going to give you all $20,000. Go find insurance on the marketplace. That's the Affordable Care Act mandates that large employers, and you could compare us like with a Walmart, must provide insurance. The insurance we are providing is fantastic. Let's get it wrong. Be honest here, and we are paying 80% of their premium. So, as I said before, we don't have an insurance problem. It's a math problem on the state side. How do we ensure that the costs don't go up? We've looked at when you talk about privatization. If somebody would want to buy that, and we'd have to still pay 80%. And there was just, it's just not an option at this point. It would cost us an extra $90 million from the meetings I've had. So we are looking at all those things, but it's not as easy as just saying, because we're not allowed to, hey, we're going to give everybody X, Y, Z, or we can change the plan. The Affordable Care Act said you cannot base your insurance on on risk. You have to, pre-existing conditions, all that. The only thing that you can charge a premium for is smoking.
Yep. And it is fantastic. PEIA for our state employees is fantastic insurance, without a doubt. And we need to take care of our state employees. They're underpaid, and this benefit of health insurance and low-cost health insurance that's really good coverage for them and their families is very, very important.
Yeah.
1 minute left, Mike.
Yep. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. 1 minute left. Final word is yours.
Yeah, I think we will get there. I don't know what the plan looks like as far as PEI. I do want to report that the school aid formula is something we are actively working on behind the scenes, and I'm really excited to. We've been talking to a company that's been giving us some advice, talking to other states. I think it's something we can address in the next session, or try to address, get those conversations started. I have been working with Michelle, Superintendent of Schools, and Uriah Cummings. So we are working all angles to try and adjust to make it better for West Virginia.
All right, stay in the AC, my man.
I sure am. I'm about to get in a suit and go to the first session.
Some call him delegate, some call him caucus chair. Around here, we just call him the boss. Michael Hornby, have a good day.
Appreciate it.